15 slides. It's a pretty good number, not too big, because with their personal narratives, they were pretty short, but the lectures can run pretty long. How many of you think this is true? My question probably tipped you off there, but it is false. Now, this isn't going to be a PowerPoint presentation about PowerPoint presentations like we got in lecture, but it's going to be a little bit similar because we know that a big part of our persuasive presentations are about sources and fact-checking. And my presentation is on checking your sources because people on the internet aren't always right. Big surprise. Though I'm not really going to focus more on the academic side of things, but on social media because it is such a big presence in our society these days, whether you're tweeting about something or checking your news feed or blogging something on Tumblr. The graphics and stories that we find can be very impactful for us, and whether they're true or not. You hear the term clickbait thrown around a lot. It's those stories that have the catchy headlines that make the sites that they go through get views. And a lot of the sites exist only for views, so their information doesn't exactly have to be factual. Now, how do you tell what's factual and what's not? You gotta do a little sleuthing. So in this presentation, I'm going to try to convince you to do that and show the consequences of those sort of things, and as well as show some examples. About 30% of people get their news from Facebook these days. It's kind of a scary statistic whenever you see your great Aunt Sally reblog some post that is just a catchy little graphic and you can glance at it and see that it's completely wrong. Like, for example, my cousin shared a post a few months ago that Mars was going to be the size of the moon in our sky for the first time in 2,000 years, and we're just, no, not a thing. But about more people get their news from Facebook than from Google these days. And when they say from Google, it's assumed that you know a little something, but you want to know more, and then it brings you through to the legitimate news sites like CNN, Washington Post, what have you, but you always assume that they do a little bit more fact-checking and such. And then people just posting on your news feed and in the what's trending sidebar. 51% of journalists surveyed believe that social media journalists do less or no fact-checking. Now, I even have to reflect on my own statistics a little bit. The journalists surveyed could have been non-social media journalists that are threatened by the presence of social media journalists because it's a lot easier entry. So, even though that sounds about right to me, could be wrong just because of biases and being aware of them. An example of misinformation that is widely spread is the whole vaccines and autism debate. Well, actually, there shouldn't be a debate. Newsflash, vaccines and autism are not linked. No. In fact, the doctor who popularized this theory falsified his research and had his medical license revoked for it. But whether it's some soccer mom at your kid's thing or a celebrity, a lot of the information, like this hasn't died somehow. A lot of people still think vaccines cause autism, and one of the examples I have up there is Donald Trump, who is running for president. And that brings me to my next example, that even politicians, who are the people that's supposed to know what they're talking about, are not always right, which is why we have to fact check all of our debates. Now, a lot of this comes from biases from the political party that they're representing, but sometimes it's just straight up wrong information. And we need to be able to check that and do your own research. I have a video example. That did not work like I wanted it to. We're going to do this.
That now infamous statement by Republican Senator Jon Kyl has become part of our political culture, and not in a good way. Kyl used that reasoning to explain why he said abortions represent over 90% of what Planned Parenthood does. That's not true. It's more like 3%. So his office rushed to his aid, and it made things even worse. It told CNN that Kyl's math was, quote, not intended to be a factual statement. Comedian Stephen Colbert took that and he ran with it.
I decided to celebrate Jon Kyl's groundbreaking excuse-planation last night by tweeting round-the-clock non-facts about him. Such such as, for the past 10 years, John Kyle has been 2 children in a very convincing John Kyle scene.
And now, the consequences of spreading misinformation. There can be very mild consequences, such as embarrassment, or maybe because of your embarrassment, you're somebody who's trying to correct you, or maybe the person who's trying to correct you is rude to you. But there can also be things such as panic, fear-mongering, mass hysteria. The example I have is an article from Time magazine when the whole Ebola thing was prevalent in the news. Yahoo News made a tweet that said that over 145 people had been inflicted in Atlanta, and then had to take it down within the hour because it turned out that was a very wrong story. And that helped spread a lot of the mass hysteria and confusion, and that's never good. And there are surefire ways to make sure that misinformation is spread, so avoid these things and you should be good. Make sure you're aware of your own biases and treat that accordingly, whether it's political biases or just life. Make sure you think before you post something on social media, because it's not just your friends and family that are going to be seeing it. Maybe future employers are going to get a look. And try not to ignore people when they try to correct you, because they might be right. Now, how many people in this room think that they've spread misinformation before, whether it's on purpose or by mistake? Good. Everyone raise their hands. Like you should. That's it.